is a little bit different of an approach. This is really a case study to talk to you about really taking on a whole brand new learning and development department and what to do with that. Joining Coca-Cola, I've only joined Coca-Cola about a year and a half ago, after spending 21 years in specialty fashion retail. And Coca-Cola, the culture is amazing, the leadership values, everything's very established in the whole system. It took me about 2 weeks to figure out the system itself because it's quite complicated. And you heard from Angel this morning. Angel is a director in our bottling functionality within the system. And so taking on this role within Business Services North America, what that means is that it was an entity of Coca-Cola Refreshments, which was about 55,000 employees. And there's a huge cultural transformation as we refranchise those pieces out and left with what we call a shared services business for Coca-Cola, for our bottlers, leaving us with 1,600 employees. So 1,600 employees, and have any of you walked in thinking, okay, I have an established team, I have all that I need, it's a huge corporation, and found out that you have to build your L&D department from scratch. Anyone ever had to do that? Okay, so this is a real talk about what are some of those critical, so you walk in and you know that everything that there is nothing. And, inheriting a team of facilitators with one instructional designer that was focused solely on contact center, which is one tower of services. So taking on an L&D perception and role that's going to now span across finance, HR services, contact center, and different areas of the business from just one entity to the entire servicing the entire organization. And so creating strategic partnership was going to be critical for the sustainability of an L&D department in an environment that's very transitional. So how do you create that partnership? How do you create that seat at the table that your L&D strategy is a part of the overall strategy? So while there's so many factors at play in building relationships and trust, I really found that there's three main factors in really starting up, basically starting up that L&D department and building that strategic partnership. And that's building your L&D brand. You're a brand, whether it's you by yourself or it's you and your entire team. What is the perception of your L&D department within the entire organization? Being critical to organizational success and just being critical. So they can't be successful without you. And that's part of our role, right, is to make sure that we're that strategic partner and they see us as part of that. And the third element or factor involved is really how do you connect L&D with everything that we do? We talked a lot about that today. But how do you connect it with mission, with your culture, with performance and recognition? Because we all know that our L&D programs are not effective unless they're connected with all that. And so building in your brand, so we really thought about what is the perception out there of the L&D function? Is the organization proactive or reactive? So any of you, I'm sure you get the fires, we've got to train on this, we've got to train on this, but is the environment, are you ahead of the game with your business? How do you get into the operations meetings on a weekly basis? How are you in with all the different service areas that you are attending? And you're not just adding value by doing training that they're asking you to do, but simply suggesting, being there and anticipating the needs of the organization to build that. Do you have a push or a pull learning culture? Are you guys familiar with a push, pull? Yeah, learn, push, compliance. Yeah, we all have compliance. But are people wanting your learning programs? Are leaders saying we want more training and they're not worried about how much it's going to cost them, but they want that training because they see the value in it? And then does your input, I think this is probably the most critical, is does your input and partnership go beyond L&D? So when you're in that staff meeting, and yes, you wear the hat of an L&D, does your peers and partners look to you for influence beyond L&D? And that's when you're building strategic partnership, when you're involved. So, for example, there was an opportunity in the organization as we're resizing, restructuring, we have a new mission, not different than a Coca-Cola overarching mission, but we have a mission as a new business services organization. And so in there, we've identified that we need our customer service level to be different. And we've looked at the quality model within a contact center environment. I don't know if you're familiar with these kind of tools, but a quality form, it's really kind of was structured as a kind of got you environment. It really wasn't creating that customer service, delivering happiness, value that we wanted to do. And so going beyond the L&D partnership, it's really reaching out to the quality and workforce management. And instead of waiting for them to say, here's our new model, go train it for us, we help them build the new model and going in there and building the competency model and helping them identify the behaviors for each competency, knowing that we needed to align it with the customer service training that we just started to roll out, which we weren't recognizing or reinforcing. And so building that quality model with the quality model team, identifying those behaviors that were critical to success, links it to performance, links it to recognition, and now we're linking it to the customer service standards. So not only are we training, but we're helping the organization build what it needs to build to be successful. In building your brand, when you walk in the door, you're like, how do you know what's coming from us? It seems so simple, but there needs to be marketing around what you do so that people understand that their content that they're now starting to see that they didn't see before is coming from someplace that's creating it. So just simply taking our logo, creating a little Coke bottle in it with the learning, and creating a brand for ourselves right out of the gate to start branding ourselves. So being critical to organizational success is the second big factor that I felt like we needed to do. And so some of you talked about doing that performing a needs assessment and skill gaps. So we really did this. And to get inside the heads of our employees, we did focus groups rather than a traditional survey. And we went across all the we call them towers, but they're service areas, IT, HR, contact center. And we went in and we surveyed all the way from our top leaders all the way down to our associate level associates. We wanted to make sure that the perception of what they needed to learn and how their skills were going to change, what they needed to be successful, were aligned top-down, so that our delivery of content wasn't just top-down delivered, but we were really listening to the voice. And it's a critical piece, and we sometimes walk in and we think we know, right, as an L&D professional, oh, they need leadership, they need this, they need that. But if you don't do this, right, you need this, because this is what helps you go back to the business and share what the solutions are, because this is what they wanted. And so we compiled the responses. We used our engagement data survey, and we compared what the engagement data survey was saying, what our people were saying, but we also looked at all of our projects. So this organization is transforming in a very fast, rapid way. And so we are exploring with AI, we're exploring with all kinds of different projects. We have projects galore. We're aligning our processes, and we're becoming our own standalone organization. And so it was very important to not only just analyze what they were saying, but to look at all the projects and then align that to what are the competencies or skill gaps that we would have in the future. For example, if we are going to start moving into using artificial intelligence, that is going to eliminate some jobs, as Angel showed you. That's going to eliminate some jobs. But what is it going to do for the workforce that's still there? So what it's going to do is the skill set of the person that is now taking the call needs to be more advanced, because they're only going to get the calls that are more complicated, that are more customer related, right? Because we're going to solve the other issues at ground zero. The first tier will be solved with AI or artificial intelligence. So things like that is what we looked at. And then we developed our L&D pathway and identified what those skill gaps were and presented them to the organization. It was a very in-depth presentation to the organization, but I'm just showing you a snapshot of our top global themes that we learned from our focus groups. Is we learned that, no surprise, leadership and coaching and new manager training was obsolete. The tenure in this organization, our leaders in the organization were there a minimum of 10 to 15 years, and not a lot of training, if any, in our leadership space. customer service, communication. So how do you take an L&D organization that was just servicing new hire training for only the contact center for 2 functional areas to solving this problem, which is a holistic approach to learning? And so we shared what our needs and skill gaps were. We looked at 1 to 3 years out. We connected the skill gaps to organizational success, and that was critical. So in each area of the business, we showed what the behaviors were, what the skill gaps were needed, and what the behaviors of an associate needed to play like if we wanted to deliver happiness in an empowered and accountable environment. What would that be for an associate? What would that be for a manager? What would that be for a director? And then we accommodated all. How do you accommodate all but still be specific? So when you're tackling a whole L&D workforce, you have to be global in your approach. So we approached it from what would service all and make everyone happy that they needed most, and then how would we go in and build role-based curriculum based on the greatest needs within the functions. And that's how we looked at it. And then we gained leadership alignment. So not most importantly, but the third element is that really connecting L&D with your mission and your values and your performance and recognition. And so being a new stand-up organization, we looked at the mission that was delivered by our top leader, and we said, what, if this is the mission statement, what does that really mean? And then we identified what are the behaviors that would need to be lived by our people in order to deliver that mission, and what were the skill gaps. And once you become mission critical, you start to align everything to that, and your programs start to work. And so we shared just a very cute kind of roadmap offering, but guiding our organization to that L&D can provide this whole series of talent and skill development from mission and culture. So we're rebuilding our structure, our teaching our customer service philosophy. We introduced our Frontline Leader Program, which is a year development on our frontline leaders. We're putting 6 cohorts of 25 through leadership development program that we're using outside and internal as we're building it. Customer service, we're implementing customer service across. It's a 2-day workshop, and introduced a new quality model to align to that. And then building high-performing teams, breaking down those silos that we talked about. How do we work better together? How do we offer that? And then while still doing technical functional skills, because that is what we were known for in offering in the organization. So connecting that mission was just really defining the mission and being critical about it and intentional about how you share that. So every piece of communication that we work with our L&D piece, we tie it back to our mission and mission in the organization. We connect and communicate that roadmap, and so sharing that with leaders, getting that buy-in, and then reminding them each time we're meeting that this is why we're doing things, and this is because this is what they wanted and this is what their people want, and communicating that roadmap. And something that I think also helped this, because we're going to offer a lot of learning, but was let leaders hand select. So making sure that we've created that partnership with our leaders and our business partners. So we have, leadership development, we have all these new programs and all these new things, but how do we be intentional about it? And so just by simply offering leaders up the opportunity to hand select people into the courses prior to communicating them to the mass was a really great response from our leaders, because now they can be very, very intentional about who they select, but yet we can still offer the courses and the curriculum across the mass for those that want to do that. And that's it.